Remember we had this conversation, I believe it was about a year ago.
Yep.
And you're like, it's Drake. And I was like, you're right. And so I saw it on Twitter come up like a couple of days ago. And I was like, okay, I'm going to GPT, like I'm going to grok this actually. And so I grokked it, and Grok instantly was like, it's Drake, like, Spotify streams and like everything, like Drake streams more. And I was like, no. I'm a little smarter than this. You, Mr. Grok guy, you're not that smart. Like an idiot would take the first response off of Grok and run with it, okay? But I'm not. I'm not an idiot. Not lucrative.
What?
I love you.
That's what do you mean? Lucrative has been a thing for a while. Yeah.
What's lucrative?
Lucrative is like my branding, like for like I guess
gotta get better with the
myself.
puns,
You know when we did the let's.
Do you know what lucrative means? Lucrative means to like incite action or create value.
No, he knows what we get it. we get it.
I like to identify myself that way.
We understand what lucrative means.
Do you not think
we get the brown words? Jesus, we understand it all. He's saying, in spite of that, he doesn't like your idea.
I'm saying, can we get more clever? Not that I don't understand it. I'm saying it should be harder to understand.
You're just upset that you're never going to be able to make a pun with Olani Owl, bro. What kind of fun are you going to make?
That might be a blessing in disguise, so I don't come up with. I'm joking. Oh God, no, that was good. That was funny. I apologize.
Funny. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the next episode of the Three Wise Guys podcast. I'm glad you caught that first little part there. Do you actually?
It's the next episode.
Like it's from the last one.
Yeah.
What kind of intro is that? Redo that shit.
I'm not gonna redo that. I'm not. No, you're gonna live with that one.
Okay, all right,
Every
fair.
episode is the next episode if you think about it, as long as it's not the first. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
That logic tracks.
You know what? I learned my lesson before. I'm stuck doing the intro next fucking podcast. All right, whatever. We'll live with it.
You were making fun of lucrative. Do you remember when we did the first video project for Adamola, what we called our consultant agency?
Lou Gailey.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Our last
Yeah,
names
Lou Gailey.
pasted back
Which, by
together.
the way, I think pretty sleek. I think pretty
paid.
sleek.
You do?
I like that makes sense. It's like a firm. It's like Lou Gailey and Sons, or Lou Gailey and I'm not a son. I'm not involved in that. That's the two of you. I did not get paid on any of that. So that's you and your sons. Or it could be Lou Gailey and Associates. I am not an associate. That's like with you guys and your associate. But you get what I mean? I'm just saying, like, that's more normal.
Yeah.
Like that you see somewhere and you're like, oh, okay, those are the names of the partners. The other name I just saw right now, like, I got it, but, I was just like, all right, man.
So, by the way, the whole reason, and this is so dumb because I don't think this domain is actually available anymore, is like, when I was like in university and I was trying to like think about like my personal brand from like a marketing / consulting standpoint, I was like, lucrative marketing was like a domain I think that was available, and like as you guys were making fun of, my first and last name is Lou and they get it, but they think that the name sucks still. Okay, so anyway, we're done with that.
I actually kind of liked Lucrative.
Like fucking you indulge Luke all the time.
Gailey.
Yeah.
I didn't really like Lou Gailey. Maybe that's because we used like black and white,
You didn't like the name, or you didn't like how it looked? Two different things.
I didn't like how the name looked.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
I was telling these guys before we got on the call. Luke had an interesting conversation. I was telling D because D wasn't there for this. But,
wasn't there.
Luke was having an interesting conversation with my dad today. He got into an argument with my dad. For those of you who don't know, we're doing a video project for his company, and we were doing like the logo revision.
Should I ask why? But no, maybe not. You tell why.
Why? What do you mean? Why
like
the
why?
argument happened?
Yeah.
I'm about to tell you.
Okay,
why.
go for it.
Stop interrupting me. I'll tell you why.
Go for it.
You get to know Arya. So my dad calls me, and I'm like, I have 3 minutes before I have to get on a call. Can you make it quick? He's like, yeah, no problem. I'll make it quick. I don't believe him, but I take the call anyways. And Luke's right there, and he starts giving me feedback, and I'm like, I already talked to Luke about this last night. Here, he's right here, just like talking.
By the way, I'm walking upstairs after I finished like an hour of calls to get a coffee, and Arya's like, "Here's the phone." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
See, like, Luke's here. Can you explain it to him? He's in charge of the logo. Like, you just tell him exactly what it is that you're about to tell me. He's like, okay. Hi, Luke. How's it going? So he gets on the phone, and then they're talking, and then I immediately hear the strain in Luke's voice as he's responding to each of these points. My call comes, and I'm like, all right, Luke, I gotta get on a call. So I just give him the phone. I'm like, fuck off. Get out of here. Like, doing this. So he goes, I'm on the phone. Like, I guess I don't hear anything for maybe because I have headphones in. And then I finish one call, I think, or two calls. I finished 2 calls. Yeah. And then I noticed Luke is going downstairs. And I'm like, hey, like, how's the call? He's like, I don't want to fucking talk about it, man.
I've heard that exact same sequence of the sign, and I don't want to talk about it too many times.
It was funny.
It's never a good sign.
It was funny. In that moment, I was like, this is the closest anyone has come to understanding how I grew up.
Oh God.
You know, you get frustrated with their parents. And they get you riled up in a way nobody else can, and then nobody else realizes, because the second your friends see your parents, they're all nice and everything. They're like, oh, you're nice, and your parents are so cool. And I was like, really? Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm still in that phase.
Yeah. Well, anyways, finally, I was like, oh, Luke knows what it's like.
No, don't kill me, man.
It's okay. It means you're a part of the family. It means
okay.
you're part of the family.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Hey, man.
I called my dad, and my dad actually emailed us.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a half hour later.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, "I'm sorry about the conversation today."
I'm sorry about the conversation.
He like backtracked. He's like, "The logo looks great. Just changes one thing, and it's all good." I called him on the phone. He's like, "Yeah, my head's just in a rough place. I'm sorry." You know what I mean? You know, I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. No, client relations, man. Like.
Yeah.
You just never know what day, what time, what kind of mood people are in, but you gotta navigate it either way. I'm glad you navigated it, and we got to a comfortable resolution. In spite of the way we got there,
It was due to no action of my own. I was I went downstairs and Arya came and was like, "Oh, by the way, that entire conversation you had, you need to do none of it." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
This is the best time.
I was like, everything he told you, forget it. Like, look at his email. It says the animation is amazing.
But I was just like, you know, that actually reminds me of, you know how like they say this is a thing that guys do, like guys are bad at like just waiting out a situation, because a lot of times like it just solves itself. Like guys are always so like action oriented, so they're like, oh, I need to like do something. I was like, oh, I did nothing and it solved itself.
Like, imagine when you started like making edits and modifications.
No, fully.
Right
like,
away,
and
like,
I might have if I didn't have like something to do right after. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So I was worried you were gonna tell the guy the edits, but in any case,
no, it was fun. Like, I feel like we won't go into the details, but like it's like a classic thing where you're talking to like a person who's not as familiar with the technology, and you're trying to like explain why something is happening, and then they're just like, no, like. Why are you explaining it? Like, I want it like this. And I'm like, well, no, I understand you want it like that.
He's like, I don't need your explanations, nigga.
That's so funny.
Don't explain to me.
Yeah, I was like, I understand you want it like this, but like, if we do it the way you want it, this thing that you like is not going to work, right? And then he wasn't like really getting that part. And then at one point, I think he was just like, no, you don't understand, because if you understood, then this wouldn't be like this. I was like,
no, literally, and I heard that part too. He was like, I understand. He's like, no, I don't think you do understand.
Oh no, that is horrible. That's a conversation going down the hill fast.
No, the moment someone says that, you're like, oh, we're not coming to the resolution on this call.
No.
Now I have to just like, kind of be like, yeah, okay, how can I understand you better? Okay, all right. You know what? Let me take down all the information you're sending me, and then I'm gonna like reply
I'll get back to you
with like what I think we should move forward with, and you let me know, right?
Yeah.
But fortunately, I've resolved this out.
I felt like such a hero just taking that easy ass call. You don't have to do any of it. I was like, I fixed it for you, bud.
That's fucking hilarious.
What a time.
Yeah,
what a time.
But,
I'm sure it's like this in every industry, but like genuinely, dude, in the creative space, if any of our listeners are in the creative space, like you guys know. It's
not the creative space. No, like I can imagine that is where like there's so much ambiguity to deal with when you're dealing with like animations and what I wanted it to look like in my head versus what the technology can actually make it look like, you know.
No, it's just like fully like today I was sorry, this is a little bit of a side tangent, but like today I was on a call with like one of the directors, and we were kind of talking about you know, just like making new workflows with Claude and stuff, and he was sending me like, so basically one of the junior account managers clients like ran some, like basically asked Claude how to like evaluate a platform, and like was doing some of the exports. They did it incorrectly, but like Claude put together this report that basically said like we were doing terrible, and it's because the data that they put in was incorrect. So we could like revise that whole thing, but I was like, man, like, you know, like in the AI world, like especially there's going to be even more scrutiny. But could you imagine if like you went to like a lawyer and they spent like 5 hours, and then like you asked them for a detailed report of how they spent the 5 hours? First of all, they wouldn't provide that. And then you take that and then run it into ChatGPT and be like, can you evaluate if this lawyer is cheating me on my money, and like evaluate if they were very efficient from a scale of 1 to 10? Like, you probably wouldn't do that, right?
So they can't do that for lawyers, but I have found out that they do that for implementers. So like KPMG and PwC, like if they give you, I found this out recently because I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, why are they, because a customer asked, like, a customer owns another customer and the portfolio company like contracted KPMG to do some work with them. And the owner of the portfolio company, which is also our customer, reached out to us, and I'm the account executive for the portfolio company. And they were like, hey, we think KPMG inflated a bunch of services and added like a bunch of stuff that is not needed. Fuck, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned. Well, I didn't mention anybody's names except KPMG.
Yeah, it would have been 3 times.
By the way, I love KPMG. Work with you guys. We've made some money together. Let's make some more.
Interesting.
Let's make some more together.
KPMG, really? You love KPMG?
Well,
right.
As long as we win deals together, let's win more.
All right,
and so
good save. Great save. Yeah.
You know, no, like I was like, really? Like, you guys want to do this? And like I was giving everybody, because we're partners, a heads up, like, hey, you know, like some big dogs are sniffing around, you know, you guys' contracts. So you guys better be airtight with everything you wrote down. And then I remember, like, I went for the Raptors game, and I was talking with some other senior colleagues, and I was like, oh yeah, by the way, this crazy thing happened. And they're like, yeah, it's not my first time. Like, you know, like it's happened where like someone signed a professional services contract, and, you know, like either the company that was about to sign, or, you know, maybe like a shareholder or an investor in the company that signed it is like, hey, like, I've been around the block a couple times. Let me have someone who knows the space, like, give it a look. So, like, all of that to say, that's more relationship driven evaluation. With Claude now, like, I can imagine, like, people like your customers just being like, because that one's a little bit more intense, you know, like it's a whole transformation, enterprise digital transformation with, I imagine, like more point services. And I think your lawyer example is accurate. Taxes, I can imagine, like, you know, where it's like super specific.
We were talking about this the other day, actually. The whole concept of like being able to self-audit now is so much more attainable for people using AI, or like companies using AI.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, with your buddy Derek, like getting the figuring out how to self-audit like everything he was doing by just trying to make his life easier by creating buttons, and it's like for these buttons to happen and to do what he needs it to do, it has to self audit. Like
You learn where workflows came from.
yeah, yeah, no, it's incredible. But yeah, just to your analogy, like yeah, it's every Tom, Dick, and Harry now is gonna be out here with somewhat of an informed opinion, but you know,
for sure. I'm not even like
Only as good as the data.
yeah.
yeah,
I'm not even like for like our industry. Like, could you imagine like fucking like doctors and shit? Like, dude, they're probably like fucking.
I feel like doctors already like were like, don't bring me some chat GPT
It
nonsense.
was not even ChatGPT. It was like WebMD. Like
Yeah,
the internet
WebMD.
really like screwed with doctors' legitimacy. I
Yeah,
think.
they did.
It was like as soon as the internet was available, people would like Google their symptoms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they'd be like,
Yeah.
they would just go ahead and diagnose themselves. You
But
know?
dude, like,
They
can
didn't
you
need
imagine?
it,
Like,
yeah.
I guarantee you, my mom would have done this if like ChatGPT was around when my dad was like going through his thing. Like, she would have been like, this specific doctor that they are referencing for this surgery, is this the best person to handle this? No. And then she would probably bring that to the office and be like, why are you assigning this guy to my husband? I did my research on him. He does not look like he has like he's one of the only doctors in Ontario with any failures, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, dude, like,
No,
I don't
I
know.
won't lie. I did that when I had my little stint in the hospital. I Googled every single person. I remember I found out my doctor came from Colombia. I was like, hell, motherfucking yeah, buddy. Open me up ASAP.
You realize that it's like, oh wow, all of these doctors are pretty qualified. Actually.
I was doing that. Like any drugs they give me, I would take a picture and Google it, and like I think it's good. I think like for me at least, it was one of those. And I remember my doctor was like, "Hey, this is what we found. This is what we did. Like here's the he told me he could send me the paper, and I think he didn't, but he sent me the name, and I found the paper that like kind of details kind of my little procedure that I went through, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was able, like I didn't understand jack shit. But now that it's with AI, it's like I could just run. Back then, funny enough, back then there was an AI, was there? That was when we were supposed to go for Detroit, the Detroit game.
No.
Yeah, there was an AI.
There
That's
wasn't
crazy.
again,
Like,
like there was AI,
LLMs.
but there was an agentic and LLM AI.
Yeah,
like,
so yeah, I think as long as I think the thing is you wanna post verify. Like I don't know that you want to like there's, or even if you do, like, you know, like just sit down and use it to inform you to ask better questions, because like I would hate someone second guessing. Like it's like if you can treat yourself, like why are you here?
I think like
you can treat yourself. Go do it.
Yeah, why are you here?
well, you know, it's like I don't know. We're in a weird Wild West phase, I think, because it's like one of the things I was thinking about is like we have like and it's more abundant here in the West, but like we have a very much more like individualistic society than the rest of the world, and then now we're kind of enabling information seeking in a way where like a lot of because it's like, look, here's the thing, right? If you make the statement that Anthropic and OpenAI can think at a PhD level, does that not indirectly then ungatekeep education? Right? It doesn't teach you how to apply to your education or rationalize it, but the access to the information is not gatekept anymore, right? So it's kind of like now if you have this tool that then has access to all the education and information of the highest level of any topic, right? Does that, in a way, it indirectly enables anyone to have the information required to create all of society, right? Because
Absolutely.
this is what society is based on. Like literally all the information has built us up to date, right? So that's when you start getting into like simulation theory and things like that, where it's like, if you kind of have the foundation of like all the information required, it's like the action architecture is like what's required next. And it's like, sure, can any individual person build that in the physical world? Maybe not, but in like a simulation, they probably could, right? Based on all this baseline. So I don't know. I feel like we're in a weird phase where there's going to be an abundance of information. The ability to apply that information in tangible and logical ways is going to be like one of the like core pillars going forward. Connections to people will be a core pillar forward, like things like that. But that's all I'll say on that. I feel like this topic can get really like deep, so I don't want to.
No, and not to even go deep. Like I'll raise you on that in terms of like adding. You know, Like raise is like a good thing. I want to add on top. Like
Go for it. He's just laughing for no reason.
yeah, let's max out this bet.
I'll raise you on
He's
that.
just laughing for no reason. He's trying to get you back for laughing at him.
Okay, this is good. We've had all the information. We've had like max information at our fingertips since the internet. Like literally, everything was a blue link away, and still people like intentionally decided to be stupid about it, right? And again, there's a lot of like fake news and all of that, but all of this to say like the availability of information is just one level.
I'd say it's not a straight line to the truth.
Yeah, it's
right?
not
like
a straight line.
information
Yeah.
is not a straight line to the truth. I feel like that's what you're trying to say.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Like there's that's just like stage 1, level 1. There's like 2 or 3 more being able to infer the information properly and then being able to, like you said, take action based off of the inference. I think it's another thing. I was listening to an interview, and I think it was Arya and I that were talking, and we are like, oh, during GFC, Great Financial Crisis, like the mortgage data, everybody had access to the mortgage data, but some people were seeing the mortgage data and they were coming up with some conclusions, and other people were seeing the mortgage data and they were coming up with like Michael Burry like conclusions. It's like people seeing the exact same information, interpreting it like two like could not be any more different types of ways, right? And I think LLMs are like, you know, in like similar or can be interpreted in a similar way.
Well, I think it's interesting actually, because now that you mention that, it's making me think LLMs would actually streamline the understanding process, create kind of a consistent understanding across society. There'd be less variance if people are relying on it for contextual wrapping. I don't know. Does that argument? I'm trying to see that argument. I'm trying to test the argument to see.
I think
if it
that
holds weight.
argument makes like an assumption that like one, all the past data points are the best outcomes, like because they happened. Like what we have is decisions that were made and opinions based on data that exists, right? So one that like basically makes the assumption that those decisions were the best situation, like decisions that could have been made in those given scenarios, just because they were the ones that were made. And then two, it also assumes that every single person values and like has the same impact based on the information that is spread. Like the information that's relevant to someone in like a rural like area in Africa versus here is completely different, right? So it's kind of like the centralization of that information also makes the assumption that the same pieces of information given to every single person has the same value, which it does not. And then two, it makes the assumption that we can articulate which pieces of information are the best just because they're the ones that happened in the past.
Yeah, I think I think the way in your that makes sense. I think the way it was sounding in my head, or the way it looks in my head, is, you know, LLMs are taking away a lot of the processing work for your brain to interpret the data that's in front of you, right? It's natural to rely on that a little bit more as time goes on. So, you know, 20 years ago is very different than 20 years ago. You know, someone's Googling, you know, who are the best artists of all time. And, you know, they get a list of the most sold albums, and that's the data set that they're going off of. And then they make their own conclusion from that, right? Whereas now you ask who's the best artist of all time, and it will give you those numbers, but then it will also give you maybe like these numbers and these numbers intuitively. And then it'll be like, well, you know, they won this award, they were recognized by this person. And now it's just, there's like, where is the space for your own interpretation in this, right? You're reading so much. It's overwhelming.
I think you're going to say the same thing as me. So
No, I want to go into something a little stupider. Maybe go first.
I was going to say, I think that's exactly.
I'm somewhere else. I was just saying
I think it's exactly that though. It's like, why did that website show up first for top 100 artists of all time? It's because enough people read it and then thought about the evaluation criteria, which was the number of albums sold, let's say, and determined that was the most valuable, right? And then when you ask an LLM, it brings up other data points. My question is, one, how does it determine those other data points? The same kind of general factors, right? Like how people evaluate the piece of content, how people deem the value of the piece of content. And if they deem it's valuable, then it goes into consideration. So it's like, it is, I think, based on that bias, right? Like the historic bias. And the answer might just be like, this is the only way to evaluate good or bad decisions. Like you can only go based on like what has existed. And like, I think that is actually the answer. Like, I don't want to be that philosophical to the point where I'm like, oh, how do we know this is best? Like personal interpretation, you know what I mean? Like, I think the existing data points is the best system we have. But I think that's also like the reason why it's hard to get like truly unbiased centralized knowledge across everyone, because of these existing biases and like the way that we built up these data sets and information and all that. So yeah, like I guess like my point to yours about like, okay, now there's more nuanced data. That nuanced data is also built on a logic, is I guess my point. And that logic feeds into the same biases as evaluating just one data point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think I can disagree with what you're saying. I still feel like the room for interpretation is dwindling.
I think it helps.
I think there's going to be a convergence of like human opinion. I think more so than in previous generations, you know, because people will all, in one way or another, like the reason why you get such wonky interpretation of the same data is because there's people who like don't have critical thinking skills. So they're just going to regurgitate what they read, right? But that contrasts with the people who are applying critical thinking skills and putting their own opinions on it. And that's why we see such a difference, you know, in looking at like one set of data, right? And there's like different levels of critical thought being applied. So I just feel like, yeah, you're right. It's the same thing that'll happen with LLMs. Is just when not applying it, you're still left with a pretty polished thought, which becomes opinion.
Yes.
You know,
I agree with that, and I think I actually agree with both of you. I would, you know, I think a good way to think about it is a distribution, where it's like not one or the other. I think we're closer. I think the LLMs have added like, you know, like a notch to, hey, more information isn't a straight line to the truth. Well, like, you get what I mean? The road is a little less dwindly with an LLM, but I still think we're still pretty far from the truth. I'm going to give an anecdotal stupid story.
Is this the stupid one?
Yeah, this is the stupid one.
Okay.
So the other day, I was thinking about Arya's favorite human being, Drake. Okay. Little cocksucker he is.
Why do you think it's disrespectful? I
don't know. Because it's fun. I'm trying to be disrespectful.
I'll remember this.
Okay, there we go. And then I got back to our age-old debate of, is The Weeknd bigger than Drake now? Right?
Actually, I'm gonna make a note for Davin, so for me to play the clip of him singing Drake as he's saying that comment. Sorry, continue.
Okay, whatever.
Okay,
yeah, like I'm not even cheesed. Okay. So remember we had this. Remember we had this conversation. I believe it was about a year ago.
Yep.
And you're like, it's Drake, and I was like, fuck, you're right. And so I saw it on Twitter come up like a couple of days ago, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna GPT, like I'm gonna grok this actually. And so I grokked it, and Grok instantly was like, you know, it's Drake, like, you know, Spotify streams and like everything, like Drake streams more. And I was like, no. I'm a little smarter than this. You, Mr. Grok guy, you're not that smart. Like an idiot would take the first response off of Grok and run with it, okay? But I'm not. I'm not an idiot, so I'm not gonna do that. And so I was like, okay. I was like, compare The Weeknd to the Drake, like where, like, do you get what I mean? Like, what does it look like? And then it went basically catalog and touring, right? And those were essentially the two axes on which it was evaluating like the artist. And maybe it brought that, or maybe I was the one that kind of brought it up. I don't remember who initiated it. So I was like, okay, so on catalog, which is like the Spotify, the streams, the album sales, the album units, Drake was ahead by like a couple 100 million. There's a decent gap. And then I told it to pull out like touring data, like who was ahead. And The Weeknd was like almost double Drake's in terms of touring. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, I'm out. And then I was like, okay, now based off of these two, who's still ahead? And it was still saying Drake. I was like, what the fuck?
Wow.
And then I was like, wait, like something's fishy here. Then I was like, all right, like based off of touring and catalog, what is the net takeaway for an artist? Like, what percentage of value generated from their catalog does an artist take home on average? And what percentage of revenue generated from touring does an artist take home from average, which has the higher net, right? Okay. And so what it came back to me was like an artist takes more from touring than they do from their catalog.
Mm.
However, touring is kind of like, like I would say one and done for the most part, and catalogs are recurring. And I was like, okay, so Drake earns like a lot more in touring. The Weeknd earns a lot. Sorry, Drake earns a lot more from catalog, and The Weeknd earns a lot more from touring. The Weeknd's take home is probably higher, but Drake's take home. And now keep in mind, like both
Beyond
of them,
the label and all
yeah,
that.
beyond
it's
the
just-
label, because there's just so many more
Just music,
hands
yeah.
in the catalog. But like the catalog is like a better. So I was like, okay, now based off of knowing this, now let's go back. Let's take Drake's catalog and Drake's career. So Drake's career catalog.
You know, I've never even prompted this much about Drake in my life.
Again,
Keep going though. This is very interesting.
yeah, I'm just talking critical thinking here. It was funny.
This
So
is very interesting stuff.
You know, I want
So-
to say this
Go.
about Dolapo.
He stayed up until 2 in the morning doing this.
I didn't.
Okay, you know you've really gone under Dolapo's skin about something, not when he argues with you in the moment, not when he argues with you about something later on,
It was 1 year
but when
later.
it becomes a recurring theme for the next 10 years.
Oh, God.
That's when you know, like, Dolapo really does not like Drake.
No.
And he actually doesn't like the fact that some of his friends enjoy Drake.
No, do you know
which
what?
you've been surrounded by since university, so I can see
No,
why
I
that's
liked
irritating.
Drake.
Everybody
I
likes
just,
Drake.
I liked Drake. Like, like it's kind of a trope I'm putting on. But like, I learned to respect him a lot. Like doing all this analysis, honestly. I was like Arya was saying, I found out a lot about like how he makes his money.
I'll
Honestly.
do the rest of it.
Yeah,
I'll do the rest of it.
so you looked at it, yeah.
So I took their career grosses,
Yeah.
the career grosses for touring and catalog, and then I took the industry benchmark of how much they take net,
Mm.
right? And then I did the same for Drake and The Weeknd. And what the basic math of it was, and it was like, I guess right now The Weeknd probably has a higher take home than Drake because this touring, like Drake's entire touring career income is like 700 million, which is insane. It's like broken all the hip hop records. Like he's untouchable. The Weeknd's After Hours Till Dawn tour alone is like 1 billion already.
Yeah.
Right? Do you get what I mean? And like he still has more dates.
Yeah.
Right? So The Weeknd's career tour gross is like 1.2 billion, like till date right now. So it's like what, 500 million worth more than Drake. But then Drake, so like but with the catalog, like Drake's catalog is like maybe like 200 or 300 million, like more album, like a couple, like a decent size, like more, maybe like 20, 30, 40, 50 million more album units sold, more streams and everything. The Weeknd is right under him. So they're pretty close. And the range was like, like Drake, yeah, like his catalog is probably going to earn more from him, like over his lifetime, because like touring is in time. And so it was just saying like his take home is probably going to be like between 400 to 800 million.
Yeah.
Right. Depending on like what those like net numbers are. And The Weeknd's is going to be like 500 to 900 million in terms of take home, because The Weeknd's catalog is also extremely valuable as well. Right. And The Weeknd actually did a deal to sell his like a part of his catalog. He still owns it. And so that helped come up with and I was like, that helped come up with the valuation of The Weeknd's catalog. And we don't have a public valuation for Drake's catalog. So it was just like, do you get what I mean, comparison numbers. But what I'm bringing this up to say is like, who's better or who's bigger, Drake or The Weeknd? It instantly brought up like Drake, just because like what you
Of the streaming
the
and-
catalog, do you get what I mean, the sales. But like when you dig deep into it, then you're like, okay, are we measuring bigger by just like how much you've been able to sell? Or are you measuring bigger by how many people are able to gravitate towards your music? And part of the touring, they were also talking about The Weeknd's reach with touring, saying like Drake has done like, Australia
Yeah,
tours,
we
but
talked about this. The Weeknd sells out very well in Asia.
very well, and
very
it's
well in
and it's stadium tours, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're talking bigger, like what context? And again, right, these two are still extremely comparable, right? And there's also like, are you looking towards the future, like forward looking in terms of like a bigger, or are we talking like bigger in this moment? And all of this to say, that was a simple LLM prompt. that I went because of my personal motivations to make sure I could find a way that the Weeknd. Yeah, Kendrick Lamar is nowhere close, dude. Don't worry.
He's googling Kendrick Lamar.
No,
Not even LLMing. He's just googling.
Just Google it.
No, I mean, they're all LLMs now. You know?
Yeah.
I'm Geminiing it.
Yeah, but all of this to say, like, just like a more nuanced perspective, I was able to get like a deeper understanding of the music
Through
business.
follow-up prompts.
Yeah, in terms of like just like the net take home that people get from their catalogs versus from touring. And it's like, hey, like someone who gives like the answer, even though that took maybe like a little too long for the podcast, but someone who gives that answer versus, oh, like the Drake is bigger because he sells like more. Like if you say Drake is bigger because he sells like, you know, more streams, like I'll be like, huh, fair enough. I guess I didn't know. But then someone else that comes in and is like, yeah, he's bigger, he sells more streams, but the Weeknd does this, and the take home here is this, and the take home here is this. And when you actually look at it, like if anything, I think my big takeaway from it is, okay, sure, if you say Drake is bigger, like quibble over it. Like I think it's highly debatable right now, depending on what their actual take homes are. But like, it's insane that the Weeknd has caught up this, like that the Weeknd can now be arguably be put on the same pedestal as Drake. Like keeping in mind, Drake is actually the person that brought him in to the industry and maybe surpass it. But like all of that to say, like
the conversation about the AI.
yeah, this is about LLMs and knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Like saying like, oh, it
Getting more nuanced
closes
information.
Yeah, it closes that truth gap, and you saying, oh, it does some of the thinking for you. And I guess what I'm trying to posit is like, hey man, like if you go with like the first answer an LLM gives you, like you're barely scratching the surface of truth. Like there's always more, and this goes back to, oh, we have access to all this information. It's like, yeah, but like how much information do you need to make a sound decision? It's not just the easiest information to get, which the LLM is going to give you now. It's like there's just a lot more that can be taken into fact. And I think my final thought here is it's going to become very easy, and I think it's starting to happen, like to detect people that are like first prompt users of LLM. You get what I mean? Like people that like, oh, like first prompt, like just help me do this, versus people that are actually.
We're coining this term. You will be able to buy first prompt user shirts.
Yeah, first prompt
The
user.
next quarter.
Nth prompt users.
Oh,
That's
that's what you want. You want to be an nth prompt user.
Prompt user.
GI across multiple LLMs as well, because I was telling you guys, I'm using multiple LLMs to
Yeah, I mean
judge.
that's a pretty serious like use case.
Like,
I think one LLM is fine. You know what I mean? If you have one that you trust, but the multiple prompt I think is more important than the multi.
Yeah, then the
LLM
multi
thing.
Yeah. Like, but all of this to say that's I feel like that's where, like, you know, people are like, oh no, LLMs. I'm like, fuck, you know, like
You have to iterate.
like, you know, like the user, the power always still resides with the user and how you choose to use the pen, use the gun, use the spear. Like, do you get what I mean? That ultimately, because not like when everybody has guns now it's like who has the best gun skills. Do you get what I mean? It's not just the one person that has a gun fighting against everyone that's still using like bows and like not bows and arrows, but like maybe swords or something, right? So it's just kind of like that upskilling treadmill like continues, and what it's gonna do now is it's gonna be critical thought, like, you know, and that's what I was gonna add, because you're saying, oh, critical thinking. I'm like, nigga, we're gonna find out that there's levels of critical thinking too, because you know, with the GFC, both people are Wall Street analysts. Like, you know what I mean? Both parties interpreting the data completely differently are seasoned Wall Street analysts. And if anything, people would side with the MBS mortgage-backed security guys that have been rainmakers for the last 20 years than some random hedge fund guy named Michael Burry. So it's all this to say, like, LLMs, like, incredible, helping close that knowledge gap, but maybe like we were at 0 to 100 before. The internet moved us to like 5 out of 100. Okay, LLMs came and moved us to like 12 out of 100. Like, humans still have to fill the gap for that 88, you know, that missing 88 or something. Bad analogy, but trying to illustrate a point.
Agreed. You know, the last thing I want to say on this is there's the intent to seek information to be educated, and there's the intent to see information to make a point. And first prompt users will always be in the latter, and not in the former. If you're like looking for like a piece of data basically to support an argument or to like make up your mind about something, like
you're gonna find it.
Yeah, you're gonna find it every single time. And generally speaking, it feels like more data goes towards that than, you know, like the core raw truthful data, because most of the information on the internet is like, for every piece of true information there is, let's say there's 100 opinion pieces about that true information. The last thing I'll say is because I think the Drake versus Weeknd topic is very entertaining and statistically does well for us as a podcast.
Oh yeah, there we go.
I'll say this. And this is my last thought.
Make sure
Okay,
to clip this.
It is like the argument of Drake versus the Weeknd inherently is like describes how great Drake is.
Yeah.
And I will land this.
Yeah.
You don't compare Drake to Justin Bieber. You don't compare Drake to like other types of Canadian pop artists because you don't compare those two genres. You never in the music industry have we ever compared another genre of artist to a pop artist. Okay? Think about this. There is not a single industry that can touch pop in terms of popularity, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about
The definition is literally just means popular music.
Okay, well, look, I get that. I'm more so talking about the sound of pop, because there is a sound.
There
right?
is a
Like,
sound.
and it's like no artist can touch that. Drake is just the biggest artist in hip hop, bar none. No argument against that. And it's like the fact that he can even be benchmarked against pop artists describes how great his size and growth is. No matter what you want to say about his art
he's a
in
pop
itself.
artist.
He's a hip hop artist.
He's a hip hop artist.
And also a pop artist.
Yeah, he's a hip hop artist.
Okay. But sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, I won't can't take away. Drake founded The Weeknd. So The Weeknd's success is partially like very little, like due to Drake. And so like at the end of the day, and in the 500 to 900 million, you know, like I imagine Drake still owns some of Abel's like catalog from like, you know, The Beauty Behind the Madness or something like that.
Definitely.
So, you know, it's a part of it. But I think one thing I wanted to like talk through, and like we've been talking AIs and LLMs, and there's this Department of War versus OpenAI versus Anthropic. And I think it kind of dovetails like, you know, a little nicely, like, you know, the AI is one thing, but the person, aka the Department of War using the AI is another thing. And I'm just curious. I know me and Arya had a conversation about this, but where did you stand, Luke?
Who's the Venezuela? What's the name of the Venezuelan president? Maduro. So I was seeing. So did you guys see like after Maduro was captured, there was so many memes of like guys like crouched in that laptop, and it was like, Claude, create a plan to capture Maduro, make 0 mistakes, commit 0 casualties.
I did not see that. That was really good.
But it's just the thought of like, you know how like us at work being like, please be professional, like make 0 mistakes, like imagining like an army official. Like
How productive is telling an AI to not make a mistake?
make 0 errors.
You're just using them tokens.
My honest answer is like, I think this topic is way beyond my fucking expertise. Like something smells fishy to me about like the data side about like I'm honestly to this day I'm still not very clear on the data protection side of LLMs. Like there's a lot of I to this day I still don't know.
None of us are.
Right, like to this day, are any of us super confident about whether or not our chat logs are involved into training data? Like it seems like there's some platforms
that
that
in and out.
yes, but even
but
then,
how does
right, like,
memory work then?
yeah, you know what I mean.
Memory is nerfed on accounts that opt out. So I don't know if you knew that.
Oh really?
It
Oh,
is.
I did not know that.
Memory is nerfed on accounts where you opt out, and it tells you that as well.
But
when you
memory
opt
is
out.
also only like chat adjacent, right? So it's like if you
like the cross chat specifically within ChatGPT, it gets nerfed if you don't opt in for data sharing. Same thing
Really?
with the same thing with Gemini too, actually.
see, but this is what I'm saying. But like I'm not clear because it's like on my personal
I used to get that
ChatGPT, I
notification.
do enable data
No,
sharing.
dude. Like I
But I
don't.
can't
I'm not improving the model for
Yeah.
everyone, and I still have memory.
It's nerfed though. I feel like it would be better if you turned it on.
I'm saying I have
because I
that.
remember when I first turned it on,
Yeah.
it would tell me it's like, oh, certain features are not available.
Dude, my
What is
memory
this,
is.
Claude?
No,
Or
this is GPT.
Yeah.
I was still telling you guys, like, my memory on GPT is still not even close to whatever fucking.
Well,
Claude
what
is
I'm
in.
saying is like
Yeah.
before I canceled my subscription last month, like I did have memory opted in the entire time, and it couldn't even access another chat that like I started like 10 minutes ago.
Who in GPT?
Yeah, I would literally be like, we just talked about this. I just uploaded those, and it would be like, can you please continue this conversation in that chat?
Really?
Yeah, and I wasn't on Enterprise. I was on Pro, so maybe
I'm not
before
on
someone comes
Enterprise.
after
I'm
me.
on Pro.
The reason I can go find it later if you want to see it, but on my Google Workspace account, like for activating memory within, because I have to go to the admin and do it
Yeah.
for all
For
the
Gemini?
For Gemini,
I don't know about Gemini.
No,
I
I'm,
was
I'm just
speaking
saying,
about
like, because the reason why I recalled it so vividly is because I went through the same notification with ChatGPT when I first, but this was 3 years ago when I did this with ChatGPT, right? But it did tell me that in order to be able to use memory features on Gemini, you need to opt in for data sharing.
Yeah,
and they not, because they don't use the enterprise models for training data. Like when you sign up for a business account, they don't use your data to train their models. So memory is just not really much of an available thing. Like, when you can tell it, oh, I am this person, this is how I want you to respond, custom and sorry. You don't have any of those options in enterprise.
Got it.
yeah.
So I know there's limitations when you don't opt into it, but exactly what those limitations are, I don't know.
Yeah, got it. But yeah, we derailed. What did you
Yeah,
actually
sorry.
want to say about
Right.
it?
I guess like I was more so just saying like I'm not super privy to like the data privacy aspects of it. Like I don't really understand what the increased danger would be to allow the government to use it. I guess like the implication there is more so like accessing like the databases and the backend and things like that. But like my understanding is also like the government and the NSA has like agreements with like Meta and all these like social media platforms where like under extreme situations they can access user data. Like that's the thing I did know. Like I know there were cases that happened in like the last 5 years where people were prosecuted because like the FBI or the CIA or NSA determined that they could breach this clause, and they did so, right? So it's like if that's what we're talking about, it's kind of like, okay, I can now see like you can make the argument like sure, Meta knows your age and sex and things like that. That's all self-prompted, and like who knows, maybe Anthropic has data points where it's like once you start talking to it enough, it starts to build like a user profile about you or something like that. That could be kind of dangerous, right? Like, but
Yeah.
I guess like my point is I don't know what degree the access the government would get to either platforms. What I do know, and what we were talking about slightly like a couple of weeks back, was like I thought Anthropic already had an agreement with the government. So did OpenAI. I guess this is like
They
a
did.
new agreement.
No.
Or...
It was the same agreement. Administrations and people changed, and they were looking over the agreement,
And they want to make
and then
There was
they
an
were,
amendment made.
yeah, and then they were trying to make
Interesting.
an amendment, and then the Maduro thing happened, and top execs at Anthropic called the Department of War, and were like, "Were our models used in this?" And I think the Department of War said, "That's confidential. That's classified information. We cannot disclose that."
It's our product.
And yeah, I think according to the Undersecretary of War from the All In podcast interview, that's what he said. So take that. Those are my sources. Take that with whatever you
He
can.
said that?
No, not PD. Emil, like his
Oh,
undersecretary.
his undersecretary.
Yeah, his undersecretary.
Oh,
Yeah, and he's the dude that leads the research and engineering part of the Department of War, and said, yeah, so they got to him, and then he flagged it to PD and DJT, and then they were like, yeah, none of that. And then the whole kerfuffle started to happen.
Yeah, they definitely blundered the negotiations and then tried to save their face. That's why we saw it on the news. That's the only reason. Otherwise, it would have been kept nicely under wraps.
Yeah, that's what I was telling. I was like,
And no one would
for
be
sure.
having
Like,
this
why
conversation.
are
No one
we-
would be thinking twice about the government having access to AI data, LLM data. But people are scared about another, I don't know, NSA like scandal. They're scared about another Cambridge Analytica. Like that's why it's so polarizing.
But
right?
I guess like my question is more so I actually don't really understand the general public outrage, because it's like
neither do I.
like I don't like what is the specific point or we're upset on? Like you like I guess like you could just choose to not use the platform if you're really like against it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
which is what people ended up doing anyway.
Yeah, I think at every turn of social media or big data use companies, there's always been an outcry of data privacy and data protection. That's not a strange thing to human beings. Everyone's scared of Big Brother. You know what I mean? And that's ultimately where this is coming. So all this to say, I understand, I think, the sentiment and the reason why people are, somewhat concerned. But I think, being in this house talking to you guys, we have decent perspectives, knowing that, these concerns are not predicated off of things that have happened in the past year. You know what I mean? Like, we've had access to these LLMs for a while, and this data is not far different than what's been collected from our existing social channels. Is just a little bit more personal. I think that's maybe what's scaring people. It's how personal it is, because people do get really personal.
But like, you can sue them. If they're breaking the law, if you didn't sign up for it.
What if you didn't sign up for what?
How they use your data, whatever you're scared of.
None of us read any of those.
Like the opt-in is,
None of us can afford a year-long lawsuit. I don't know. Like, telling the average person to sue is.
So don't use the platform. It's like we have I think the lack of understanding from my side is the plethora of options that are available. And you get what I mean? People are like, we just don't want this option. And it's like, okay, like, and that's what ended up happening anyway.
I think the two big options are both, they both have contracts with the government now.
Yeah, and Gemini and Grok.
They all do. So it's like, we're also here at the same time, you're saying that we're also telling people you need to be using AI, you need, get on or get left behind, you know what I mean? So it's, again, all this, the main question I'm trying to answer is just saying, I don't know where people are, getting this from. I do see it, but I am with you. I do think it's somewhat unfounded. You'll probably be okay.
Yep.
It is like data privacy, data protected, same as every other internet application that you use as well. It's the same terms and conditions, essentially.
I think really
they just have an agreement with the government to provide their services, and it's coincidentally the same model that's being used, that's being trained by global data. That's the overlap here. That's what people are concerned about. It's like, this model is being provided to the government. This model is trained on our data. Therefore, the government has our data. Does that make sense? That's the conclusion that people are drawing here. Which, I mean, I don't think it.
It makes my head hurt a little.
Yeah, I don't think the logic tracks all that well, considering the fact that that is the product, right? Like, when you use an LLM, you want something that's been trained with as much data as possible. That is the product. To Dee's point, don't use it. But like, it's. If the government doesn't have it, Anthropic has it. Do you feel any better if they have it?
I think we vastly overestimate the importance of our personal data. And then second of all, we vastly overstate the importance of information and not applied information.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the problem. And that's what I think AI will really show over the next couple of years. Like,
I totally agree.
I was really, by the way, sorry, I wasn't doing that for nothing. I really thought I wrote this down somewhere, but like, I was like last week, I heard this quote that was like, the issue with our society, like for anyone that was born in like the year 2000 afterwards, was not the abundance of information. It's the ability to seek and like understand it. Right? Like, if you were born in the year 2000 and after,
you haven't really learned how to seek and understand information.
Like, to your point, like,
it's been at your fingertips.
LLMs, all the shit was available. When LLMs weren't available and you were still trying to find those drugs, sure, maybe you had to click into a few links and read instead of it being automatically summarized, but you fully could do those things. And guess what? The delta was 10 to 20 seconds.
Yeah. So you mean like before 2023 or 2022 is what you mean, right?
Sorry, like before, if you were born in the
like
year,
the
basically
internet.
any time when we were born and after, the issue was never really about the lack of information. It's one's ability to seek and process information, right? Yep. Which I think is like core, like truly the core of like what LLMs will really show. It's funny, actually. This is so corny. I made a LinkedIn post about this today, but it was a discussion that Dolapo and I had in university. This was like one of our big like first arguments, first debates about anything, and
Was
it was
this a
about.
bet that was put on Google Calendar by any chance?
It was not, but it was because this is a you'll see, like, it's intangible. Basically, we were talking about intent versus outcomes, right?
Yes.
And at the
That
time,
was a 1 year, year and a half
I actually
argument.
remember hearing about this argument too.
It continued for a long time.
yes, and I remember at the time, Dolapo was like, intent is very important because, like, I think we were talking about a few examples, but like one of them is like, like. You want to do like the right thing for someone, but then like sometimes it doesn't end up working that way, or like
These
like
things out of your control,
right? Or like you really want to try to accomplish something, and like it's that thing that matters. And I was kind of like, well, that's exactly why it doesn't matter, because let's say like you really love someone and you want to do something with the intention to like like make them feel better, but you actually hurt them. Well, guess what? They're like hurt, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing that actually matters. I think in the era of AI, intent and outcome will become closer and closer, because outcome will be a lot easier to produce, right? Like think about products.
I can see that.
Think about products. Like in the past, you had to justify the outcome of products with your intent, right? And then that was the starting point to even building it. Because if you wanted to build an app, you needed a team, you needed developers, you needed people to buy into your idea. Now you just go on and you spin it up in like 20 seconds, right? So now it's like, what was your reason for making this app? Was it to like solve a problem, or did you like think you finesse something where you could like make a quick buck?
Yeah.
Because
Or did you think it was just cool? You wanted to flex.
They'll really come to light, right? Like
That's very profound. Yeah.
I was like just even saying to like my director today, I'm like, dude, I've only been on this like AI like fucking around with like vibe coding for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, what about people who have been doing it for like 3 years? Like they would have built up a wealth of knowledge, but in a weird way, that gap is not that big because the new technologies are way better. So what is the difference maker? It is understanding of people's problems. And it's like the understanding of why those problems need to be solved and like really going forward and solving them. So, sorry, we started with data privacy. I don't even know how we got here. But like,
was that. Like I think what you just highlighted is kind of why I was like that information gap, where like the internet got us to like maybe like 5 out of 100, and LLMs will get us to 12 out of 100. But
yes,
what's gonna happen is maybe we thought the gap between 0 and 100 was maybe like 0 and 10.
Yeah.
And LLMs, getting to 12 are like, oh no, it's not 0 to 10. There's like it's 0 to 100. There's like this whole other like where intention starts to matter a lot more. As an example, is just one of those things where understanding of people's problems and being able to synthesize like, hey, someone's talking about something really complex. Let me break it down really simple, communicate it really simple, and then like solve it really complex. You get what I mean? There's like there's so many mini interactions in between there, and there's a lot of value that like we just didn't know that was trapped in there that's gonna be unleashed. I heard this analogy. Oh, I'm not gonna bring it up, but I heard an analogy of kind of when you anchor. I'm not gonna bring it.
You bring it. What are you talking about?
I'm gonna simplify it. I'm not gonna talk about like because it's about currency pegs and devaluation of currencies. So it's not really. But when you anchor to something and then you change and you re-anchor, the gap between your previous anchor and your new anchor is usually not like. Do you get what I mean? Like I won't say it's quantified. People just start. People start looking at the gap from the beginning to your previous anchor and the gap from the beginning to the new anchor. They don't necessarily look at that gap between where the old anchor was and where the new anchor is now. And the people that kind of take advantage of that gap, as opposed to working from the beginning again to where the new anchor is, are people that would get that, like capture the value there. All of this to say, like, finding that gap of, like this critical thinking, this intentionality, this understanding of people, the people that take advantage of that gap are the people that are gonna make the most, like capture the most value, as opposed to the people that are trying to reorient and start from scratch all over again. Like be like, I want to build everything from AI. It's like, just look at the gap that AI is actually filling right now, or maybe it's making more visible. And I think one last thing I wanted to add there too is I think when we're talking about Anthropic versus OpenAI versus Department of War and the outrage, I think something that I don't know if a lot of thought has been given to is what's the alternative? Like,
and just talking about that, like go use something else, but like everyone has an agreement. There is no alternative.
No, there is an alternative. You could go use Kimmy. or you could go use DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, yeah, sure.
You know, like, but like I'm saying it like because like those aren't alternatives. Like people don't like if you think the way the U.S. is using AI is horrible. Well, yeah, go run with China. Okay, like
I just think it's like one of the what's the alternative to the like to that point? It's also like what's the alternative to the allowing the government to use these products?
Yeah.
You want them to not?
Yeah.
You want China to have DeepSeek and us
to not
have anything and just go human manual process? You want
American exceptionalism.
Right? Like it's like
they have Americans, so they're good.
No, but you know what I mean, right? It's like when you put it into those terms, it's like oh yeah, because you know what I mean. Like imagine you were like because it's like take this in like I don't even want to make this statement, but like let's say I don't want to point out a specific company, but like let's say there's a military technology for the cameras on all the aircraft carriers and battleships, right?
Okay.
And this like can identify objects that are flying, and then it can lock onto them and shoot them.
Are you talking about Palantir?
I don't know if they make that technology. I'm just saying like
They do.
so Palantir.
And the issue was Claude is used on Palantir. It's not like Palantir like separately. It's like Palantir on Claude. That was the issue.
Claude
But
Code
anyways,
and Claude LLM, but all this to say, no, I don't think an American would make the argument of like, oh, instead of like that AI, let's have like a bunch of Americans like looking and then like reporting. Like obviously, like not like this is a ridiculous like comparison.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't draw lines with things. Like the issue is people see LLMs and what they see is my job. Like people are saying my job is going to disappear. And then now they're connecting it to another thing I generally feel badly towards, which is the government. So now it's like
and war,
a powder keg of just like fucking negativity, right? It's just like I think the main problem is just like we need to like go to your point. Second prompt. Like if we can get to second prompt, like humankind is in a better place. If most people can get to second prompt.
That's a great way to start thinking. First prompt. Are you on second prompt? Nth prompt. Yeah, because second prompt and nth prompts, there's probably a bigger gap between.
An N difference between
absolutely. So N is likely bigger. N is greater than 1. Okay, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Oh jeez, but no, it's incredible, dude.
The Three Wise Guys community, we want you guys to join us in making this a new marquee statement for the 21st century. Be a part of the first prompt user as an insult. Be a part of this group. It's a good group.
That's actually, look at me just coming up with new ways to insult people. I fucking love me.
Yeah.
You're on a date and she says something like, if you're on a date and he or she.
Iteration of that joke, I guess.
Oh god.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, from data security to nth users and new jokes. I think that about does it for our episode today. So ladies and gentlemen, you tell us what you think. Should the government have acquiesced to Anthropic? Should they not have gone into agreement with Sam Altman the very day that they Anthropic? Tell us what you think. Give us your opinions. And if it's a good enough opinion, maybe we'll talk about it next time. Till then, one love.
One love.
Lucrative is a good name.